Hello everyone and welcome to my LEGO room. I'm TJ the Brickwright and today we're going to be looking at a MOC. A MOC that was seen and commented on in the teaser photo that I released a couple weeks ago. Firstly though, I wanted to remind everybody that the contest is going on, the New Republic Starfighter contest, and we already have some entries. And true to form, we actually had one entry that came in the day of from Dale Jones, one of our long-term contributor to the contests. So congratulations, Dale. You were the very first entry, and it was on the same day that the contest was announced. Dale is pretty quick with his inspiration and his ability to put stuff together in a very short period of time. But today we're going to be talking about a rebuild and a redesign of sorts of a MOC that I have had up for quite a while. As many of you know, we had a contest here on the channel about building a new ship for Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, since the Razorcrest was destroyed in Season 2. Now this was long before the Naboo Starfighter was going to come in onto the scene, although we have had some modified Naboo Starfighters in contests, but not for this particular event. And I actually semi-participated in the event because I built my own version of a ship that Mando would have flown, possibly in Season 3. And that was this ship. This was the Broken Eagle. And it's a ship that I really fell in love with, and every single design choice that I made in here had something to do with Mando, with Grogu, or the combination of them. Down to the fact that the ship is actually half a ship because Mando is now only half a clan that Grogu left with Luke. So that was pretty exciting. I went through a lot of work to make sure that this was a very good ship. I even built the instructions, and a few people have actually bought them, so I really appreciate that. There was one thing I forgot to mention in the original video that I'll share with you now, and only people who bought the instructions would know about it, but on the back of the crate we actually have a bunch of tubing, and that is, in my mind, the life support systems that had to be extended over to attach the cargo pod and make it a living space. There's even a little black hose on the side here that connects into a panel on the end, and so it like gets controlled, and it's like the sensor controls that are transferred to the main ship. That's pretty fun. I've always really loved the strapped-on nature of this engine with the grates and the doors and stuff like that, just tacked on there, making it work. This is definitely one of my favorite ships, and one of the ships that is probably never going to be taken apart, because even though Mando has his N1 Starfighter, Dave Filoni, you're welcome to get in touch with me. I'll send you the blueprints and the sketches and the ideas behind the ship, and you're welcome to use that for Mando Season 4. Just letting you know. I know you watch these things. I realized that I kind of neglected something, and I never built the Unbroken Eagle. And so a while back with my patrons, I teased the idea of something called Project Unbroken. And I even started going as so far to start building MOCs based on that idea. And one of those MOCs, as some of you, the patrons mostly, will know, is this. It's the Slave One tank. And a lot of people were going, okay, well, what's the purpose of this? And not a lot of people were excited about it. And I thought I would get them excited because after releasing this, I was going to release Project Unbroken. But I never did because I ran into a major mental block. And it wasn't until just a few weeks ago that that block finally lifted. And I saw a part and I said, you know what, that part could work for Project Unbroken. And then it exploded. As most things do here in the LEGO room, once I get an idea, once I figure out a solution to a problem, everything explodes, and here we are. This is the Unbroken Eagle. I don't actually have a full-on name and designation just yet, but I was too excited, and too many other people had asked me where this ship was and wanted to see it in person or displayed on the channel sooner than I could build the instructions. So we're going to go over a bunch of the details and a bunch of the features of this ship, and I hope you will stick around and follow along with me as I go over all the different parts. Now, you may be wondering what the slave tank is for and why it's here on the table, and some of our eagle-eyed viewers may have also noticed that I don't have one, I actually have two. Well, these Slave 1 tanks actually fold down, slide underneath the Unbroken Eagle, and attach in. And the Project Unbroken here is actually a dropship. So there are little clips that tie in, and for those of you who actually looked at the instructions or looked at the tank here, there are holes in the sides of the ship, and we didn't really know what those were for, and now you know what they are for. They are designed to go together. So then you can pop up these two bars here, reach inside, and lift off and carry the ship and swoosh it, and it is extremely strong. For those of you who may be worried that those wings are not strong enough to hold those for very long, I actually store it like this, with the tanks hanging off of the wings, and it holds together extremely well. That's actually one of the reasons why I didn't do the instructions yet, is because I wanted to make sure that the structural stability was still okay after I made the changes to add the carrying handle. So, just for kicks and giggles, let's go ahead and show you it dropping those slave tanks right down. And we'll go on number 1 and number 2. And there we go. The mechanism for dropping those was actually one of the first things I developed and showed the patrons. And they were so excited. They're like, oh, that'll be awesome. I don't have any other dropping systems or crates or anything like that yet, but it's very easy to come up with new solutions because all you need is something 4 studs wide with the Technic bricks on it. And then you balance it and you're good. It's actually an extremely simple setup, and it works extremely well, and it's pretty low profile. I bet most people wouldn't even notice that there were some funky things about that. But speaking of noticing funky things, let's go ahead and get into it. So here on the engines, you can see that I have a dark red interior and a gray outside with an orange line around the front of the engine as well. The reason I did that was kind of to harken back to the Broken Eagle, because it has that cargo crate that has the dark red, and then the orange is supposed to be rust. But in this case, I wanted the orange to be decorative, to be purposeful. So even on the wings have an orange stripe in the middle of them, which I was really excited I was able to get to work. But it's kind of sandwiched between the light bluish gray, but there's an orange stripe along there. There's an orange stripe here and here. The stripes were predominantly orange on the ship whenever I could, but occasionally I did have to make a few concessions just because of parts availability in colors as I was going along. So the engines themselves have actually been completely, well, not completely, but significantly redesigned for Project Unbroken, because the Broken Eagle needed engines that weren't symmetrical, that had some funkiness to them, and so I designed them that way. But when it came to Project Unbroken, I wanted to make sure that those engine pods were very easy to replicate and easy to build, and that wouldn't require a whole ton of extra work and asymmetry to put them together. So they are identical on both sides. As a matter of fact, they're so identical that you can actually build both of them at the same time and put them on either end, and you're good to go. This has been pretty fun to do. And then on the bottom of the engines are some transparent blue plates underneath, and those are meant to represent some downward thrusters for vertical takeoff and landing, or VTOL as we say on Earth. So the engines were actually some of the one of the reasons I started building Project Unbroken at a more full scale, I realized that those dark red pieces inside there would be perfect and could add an extra texture to the engines, having a different color on the inside. And I gotta say, I think it looks pretty good. The very last color change that I did was at the top of the engines is these little shapes that are made with the 2x4 wedge plates. And I changed those to dark red because I thought it needed a little bit more color in there. And that little splash of dark red, I think, made a huge difference. Then we move along the wings. Whoop, let's show you here. So we have 3 orange stripes that go across the mechanism here, and those are purely for decoration. But then your squeezing mechanism, sorry, I should figure out a better way to show you this. The squeezing mechanism is right here to release the tanks. And they do move independently of each other. Whoop. But it's when you do them at the same time that it works the best. Although you can actually move one and have the tank drop down. I just always use the 2 because it's easier for me. The carry handle, as you can see here, spreads out and occasionally gets stuck against some pieces that aren't in all the way, but that's okay. Spreads out and goes down and creates a pretty low profile handle for the ship. It's not as low profile as I originally wanted it to be, and I spent a lot of time trying to make sure that I had a structural support going across the top, but then also had a carry handle. The only little bit of asymmetry that I kept with the ship were just the antennas on the front here. So I have a bar antenna on this side and a dish antenna on this side. A lot of the rest of the ship is completely symmetrical because as much as the Broken Eagle was asymmetrical, I wanted this one to be symmetrical. The rotating cannon on the top of the ship is almost identical to the one on the Broken Eagle. It just has a little bit of design changes because, believe it or not, this ship is slightly taller than the Broken Eagle. I think it's 1 plate taller overall, and that was to help get a little bit of extra bulk on the bottom, make it a little more sturdy. But if I pop this open right here, you can see we have our little guy in the chair, and it follows along with the cannon. I really was inspired by the Mandalorian Season 2 with the Trexler Marauder little cannon seat that was at the back. I just absolutely loved that, and finally was able to integrate it. Obviously, it was on the Broken Eagle too, but this is just a slightly different, hopefully an improvement. The inside is pretty sparse, and that's for 2 reasons. Number 1, I haven't had that much time since structurally figuring out the wings, but I also wanted this to be a Mandalorian flown ship. Some of our really close-up viewers may have noticed that there are Mandalorians in the front cockpit area. There's even a Mandalorian at the rear gunner area right there. And even in the Slave 1 tanks, there are Mandalorians inside those as well. I was kind of designing this as a Mandalorian takeover or Mandalorian battle dropship kind of thing. But that may or may not actually continue on in the way that I expected. Obviously, we're thinking that there may be some Mandalore planet visits in Mandalorian Season 3. So we may get to see some of the actual battleships and vehicles from Mandalore in this new season, which would be really fun. In the front, another change that we made was having not only a pilot seat, but a co-pilot seat. So the pilot seat right there is pretty standard, not too much to write home about, but it's really the co-pilot seat that I'm most proud of because the co-pilot does not have a console directly in front of them. There are a lot of problems with the canopy that I used getting in the way of adding a second seat for a co-pilot or a passenger. So what I ended up doing is taking consoles and putting them on little bar hinges So you can actually push them out of the way. Well, let's see if you'll go out of the way for me. It's hard to do this when I'm not looking directly at it. But you push those out of the way, and they actually kind of fold to the sides. So you can see he's no longer touching them. And then you can pop that guy right out. You can see there's no console in front of that pilot, but he just has those two on the sides that come together. So let's go ahead and put him back in and show you what I'm talking about. And I mean, I guess I already just showed you, but I think it's really fun to just slide those in right under his hands. And there you go. He's operating the controls just like that. Sorry, I'm trying to get better at this angling and showing off MOCs and stuff. Well, what that also allowed me to do was to make the sides of the cockpit area a little bit thicker, since I only needed enough room for one figure in a line. I was actually able to make the sides a little thicker and hold these side panels on just a little bit better. They seemed a little bit fragile in the Broken Eagle. They weren't really, but it seemed that way, and I thought they could use a little bit of beefing up. There's also another section that you can remove right here, right on top, so you can access the weapons compartments and things like that. Now, moving backwards on the ship, let's go ahead and flip it around. You can see that the clamps are held together by a single white Lego rubber band. That is an official Lego part, so no dollar store rubber bands on this MOC, that's for sure. All right, on the back, I did change the gunner's turret at the very back. Number one, the canopy from the Razorcrest is very expensive. It was going for $20 or $30 at one point. I think it's down. I think it's closer to 10 or 15 now, but that's still quite a bit to pay for a canopy. So I went with these 6-wide round canopies that were in a few sets. I really like them, and they're the same ones that I used on the upright tanks. So I thought that was a nice little crossover between the two, keeping that design language alive. I also kept the guns on either side. These are a little bit different. They're not the dual guns from the Broken Eagle. They're just singles, so the Broken Eagle could say that they were upgraded before or after its initial crash. We have our 2 vanes on the back, whereas the Broken Eagle only had the one because the one side got sheared off with both the gun emplacement and the vane on that side. And then if we look underneath, we see our biggest deviation from the Broken Eagle. The Broken Eagle had a cargo section and a way for guys to get in and out, nice little ramp there, but this does not, and it's way too hard to see that, so I'm going to pop that off there. So this actually just has a small section that you can attach cargo to. So this is one of the cargo containers from the NMD5 transport, and it's got a whole bunch of technicals right up in there that can attach right into. The only change I had to make from the original version was adding jumper plates instead of tiles on the very top of that. But then if I can flip it here for you, you can see I have holes for axles to go in 4 corners, and then I have all these Technic pins that can be attached to whatever you want to carry. So there's a really good receiving pad right here if you want to try to add something to the bottom of the ship. Now, in the back, there is still a way for your characters to get in and out, and that is right here. We've got a nice little door here, nice little fun handle that I can't seem to operate when I'm operating blind, but then you can open that right back up, and it works as a very good ramp, and it's not too steep. Dave Filoni, I know you talked about steep ramps, or no, it's Doug Chang. Doug Chang talked about steep ramps. These ramps are not too steep. They're nice and easygoing, nice good angle. I also need to show you guys landing gear. They're very simple on this particular build. Landing gear is not really anything to write home about. It's very similar to the Broken Eagle. Obviously this one just comes back right there, and these actually come back and are on a bit of an angle at the back, but I thought it was okay. It's not my favorite. I wish I could have come up with a better one, but that I spent so much time on the landing gear and it just didn't work out the way that I hoped. On the side here, you can obviously see that there are some patterns that go along the ship. Those are pretty much decorative, but they also help to hide the fact that there is a side door on the ship. And I'm opening it upside down with the ship upside down, but it should work the same way. So that little orange piece, you actually just pop it up and move it backwards, and you have a door that opens up for access to the ship. And that door is actually right in line with the Broken Eagle. It's the same distance back as the Broken Eagle's door was, both for the cargo pod to attach and the engine to attach on the other side. So that's been pretty fun, and that was a new door technique that I hadn't used before, and I'm not entirely sure where I saw it or if I just was playing with hinges and found that at some point. But the door is actually extremely fun to use. It feels cool going in and out, and it fits pretty darn flush. It does stick out one plate more than the rest of the ship, but with the decorative lines here, it actually hides that extremely well. All right, so I've tried a whole bunch of different ways to show you this, and there's really only one way that I can do it, and it's if I hold the camera and show you this little one extra feature. So this extra feature is this circle right here. On the Broken Eagle, I had a fun little circle, and I imagined it was the trap door, very similar to the Razorcrest, that went from the inside straight down underneath the ship. But it was just a fake door. It couldn't open or anything. It was just purely decorative, but it was a fun little storytelling element that I enjoyed. So this one, I took it a step further and decided to do this. Hello. So it's actually a functioning airlock hatch of sorts. Now, obviously a minifigure cannot fit through here, but the idea that you could just open that up and close it and have it be like a little sealed airlock was too fun to not try, and it totally worked. And that's pretty much everything of the entire ship. I really hope you had a good time looking at the ship and going over all of the cool features and ideas behind the Project Unbroken that I'm holding right here. I think I'm going to go ahead and start asking for suggestions on names. I know that's kind of dangerous to ask the public for names, but we're not putting it to a vote. I will decide what the name is, but I would be happy to take some suggestions on what it could be. If you could incorporate the words Unbroken or some hint towards like any lettering, like UB or something like that, that'd be cool. But if not, if we can find a really cool name for this ship, I would take it. And when the instructions are complete, I'll go ahead and credit whoever comes up with the best idea that I like the best. So it's like a contest, but I just pick whoever I want the best. So let me know what your ideas for a name for Project Unbroken would be. Either a classification, a letter and number designation, or an actual name for this particular model of that ship. I'll take all the above. Well, once again, thank you so much again for hanging out in my Lego room. I've been TJ the Brickwright. Until we see you next time, play well. Bye.